Best of r/malicious compliance episode 10. I used to work for a government contractor that was contracted to run computer simulations at a training academy. This contractor was super strict for start times. Before we'd run a scenario, we'd have to be in our chairs and ready to go 5 minutes before the estimated start time. The first scenario didn't start until 10 minutes past 7 AM, but they would give you a point for being even 1 second past 7 AM for check-in. Very often, there is a line at the front gate for the security check, and train crossings operating at random times. One morning I had a train stop at the crossing for several minutes. I haul-ass to try and get to work on time, and sprint through the doorway panting at 7 hours, 0 minutes, and 3 seconds. 3 seconds late, but I'm here. Unfortunately, we had a super strict and socially awkward supervisor that day who loudly declared that I was 3 seconds late, and earned a point. Slightly irritated, I said great, I'll be sure to deduct those 3 seconds from my time card. The online time card system only accepts time in quarter-hour increments. You'll lose 15 minutes, not 3 seconds. Great, I say. I'm going upstairs for 14 minutes to get a breakfast sandwich. I'll be back just after the first scenario begins. This effectively means someone from the group of people waiting to see if they can go home, as they schedule more people than they need, to ensure we have the amount of people we need to run. Would have to run the first scenario since I won't be paid until 5 minutes after the first scenario starts. Once a scenario begins, we don't switch people around. So I got the whole first run off, which was about 48 minutes long, and the normal 30-minute break between runs, because the supervisor cared about 3 seconds. TL. Doctor, I was 3 seconds late. Manager said I won't get paid for 15 minutes due to system limitations. So I cost the company extra money and got 1 hour paid breakfast break. Thank you. Next. Employee worked at a farming equipment manufacturer. It would reach temperatures sometimes above 100 F in the summer. No one likes to work in that kind of heat, so the special employee thought he would be smart and get out of working during the hottest part of the day, but still earn enough to live on. Employee found a doctor to write a note saying that he couldn't work in temperatures over 90 F. This worked well for him for a few weeks. He would work about 4 hours and say it was too hot and go home. This left manager in a tough spot with one less person for half of the day, but knew that he had to comply with employees' restrictions. Manager installed thermometers around the shop. Manager of course does not want employee to have a health problem, so as soon as one of the thermometers reached 90, employee was sent home. It turned out that it was getting to 90 F about 2 hours into employee's shift, not 4. This put employee in a pinch because now he wasn't earning enough to live on. Now employee had a couple choices. He could find another job that was cooler. Maybe a part-time job in the afternoon that would be done in air conditioning. Or he could admit that he just didn't want to work in the heat, but it wasn't really causing any health problems. In the end employee went back to the doctor and got the note removed from his file. He was now able to work full shifts alongside his co-workers. TDLR. Employee doesn't like working in the heat, but realized that lying wasn't the solution. Edit. A word. Edit 2. 90 Fahrenheit is 32. 2 Celsius. Edit 3. The relative humidity is almost always very low. Thank you. Next. A few years ago I was a freshman in a small university. The usual history professor was the acting dean of art, so the university hired a professor on a year-long, potentially renewable, contract to teach the courses instead. This professor had experience teaching graduate programs and you could tell they struggled with teaching History 101. But overall the first semester went without a hitch. They were pretty well liked, students were enjoying themselves, and doing pretty well. However, in my department March is the crunch season. People get swamped with projects, recitals, concerts, presentations, so it's not uncommon for students not to do the homework or readings. So sure enough when March hit, one class not a single person did the homework. No one did the reading and we couldn't really do a class discussion. The professor was furious. I don't know what clicked in them, or they were just having a bad day, but in my time at schools I still haven't seen such an unprofessional display. They yelled things such as you should all be mature enough, you're not in high school anymore, you're there. But one quote stuck in everyone's mind. I am not your teacher. I don't teach you, I guide your discussions, and provide professional insight. I am not your teacher. Needless to say, the class paying 8k in tuition a semester was not pleased at this comment. But as the semester was ending, we bit our tongues and just waited. While the rest of the semester went by, all was fine until the class received course evaluations. For context, my university makes every class do anonymous course evaluations at the end of the semester that the university takes very seriously. As in black envelope given to the administration, the teacher doesn't even get to look at them serious. And this is where we get to the malicious compliance. While the form has many questions regarding the class, one of them stood out to us. Number 3. How well does this professor perform as my university's teacher? Well, most of us made some glances at each other while filling out this form. After all, they made it very clear that they were not our teacher. All the additional written comment slots were also filled with comments explaining how they made it very clear that they weren't our teacher, and should not be referred to as such. Because the forms were anonymous, we never got to see or hear any reactions, but it is good to note that their contract did not get renewed for the following year. Thank you. Next. My dad got a little cut at work, ignored it. 3 days later, his finger turned black. Antibiotics, WCB, etc. Boss reamed him for not reporting it at time of injury, and how he won't be covered if he doesn't report injuries in a timely manner. Dad's like, boss. Won't happen again. Over the next few months, my dad reported every injury, no matter how small. Boss was writing up first aid reports for stubbed toes, bruises, scrapes, cricked neck, just in case they turned into something bigger. Boss is telling him every time, this isn't really anything. It's a lot of paperwork for insert tiny injury here. Dad just keeps bringing up the boss chastisement the last time he didn't report. Dad laid up a tiny bit after a few months, but had far more recordable incidents in his 8 years there than anyone else. TL. Doctor, Dad doesn't report tiny injury. Boss gets mad when it worsens later. Dad then reports everything. Moral of the story, even little nicks can get infected, but we can also be reasonable with reports. Thank you. Next. Short story TLDR. Spam my email. Get spammed back. I've had a slow day and I'm getting a promotion, so I'm running out of cares to give for this 2-day week. I work out of a case queue similar to an IT ticket system. There's a lot I can do, but there's one thing that I can't. Remove public customer feedback on our site. This of course pisses a lot of people off. Especially my least favorite type of customer, lawyers. One guy from a law firm is on a person crusade to spam our ticket system to try to bully us into something we can't do. I'm talking hundreds of tickets. But it's a slow day on the phone, so definitely in the interest of being thorough and making sure he's getting the information he needs, I'm sending him the same reply back to each one. It actually does have helpful info, and they ask to stop spamming us because we can't do anything. But he's going to get it as many times as my spiteful little hands can type Control and P today. Thank you. Next. Story from my friend, who is waitress at a local restaurant. She had served an older couple their food, and the woman asked for pepper. No problem. My friend grabs the mill and grinds some on. After a few seconds, the normal amount of pepper is on her food and my friend leaves to attend to other guests. When she circles back around to the older couple's table, the woman rounds on my friend and spits. My friend was very disgusted by the saliva flying out of this woman's mouth. She joked about getting tested for rabies, that wasn't nearly enough pepper, and she demanded my friend keep going until she was instructed otherwise. As my friend recounts, it was almost the end of her shift, and her manager would have her back when it came to guest disputes, so she shrugged, grabbed the pepper grinder again, and began anew. As she did, the woman literally turned her back to my friend and rummaged in her purse. My friend kept grinding the pepper, all while this woman knocked her purse around the floor, until she ran out. Excuse me ma'am, this one appears to be empty. I'll run back and grab a new one. It was several minutes before the woman turned back around to discover a pile of pepper on her plate. The woman did an excellent impression of a fish, before simply standing up and leaving. The man she was with simply paid the bill, leaving an excellent tip, collected her purse and followed her out. My friend hasn't heard anything from review websites, social media, etc. TLDR woman demands pepper be ground until she says stop but doesn't say stop and gets a plate full of pepper. Thank you. Next. On mobile. Forgive the formatting. Apologies for the long background. This is important in the story. I had a boyfriend who was in his junior year in college when this happened. I, on the other hand, was in my second year in master's degree and working as a teacher's assistant in a different university. He lived in a different city, approximately 2 hours drive from mine. We usually see each other on weekends. I had always helped him with his papers, essays, case studies, feasibility studies, business proposals, marketing plans, etc. After 1 year in the relationship, I ended up doing everything without contribution from him at all. He didn't even bother to read the papers for editing. He'd say that he trusts me and he knows I am a good writer. This was difficult because his degree is different from mine. I am a computer science major while he is a business management major. Add to that, he always notified me about these papers when the deadline is too close already, so I always ended up spending the whole night just to do his papers. Aside from giving me the burden of doing requirements, he also told me that this time I should write 2 papers for the same topic. One would be the full paper while the other is a paraphrase version. I didn't find this odd because I had a subject with the same requirements. Professors use the paraphrased versions as an inclusion in our final exams. One time I had to go to his city for a 2-day workshop. He told me I could stay in his apartment so that I wouldn't be driving back and forth. I agreed and actually thanked him for his kindness. On the morning of my first day of workshop, he left early because of his class. While I was preparing, I heard a notification from his laptop. He left it open on his study table. I checked it and found this conversation of him and his girl classmate, GC, in his Facebook Messenger. GC, hey, are you done with the case study assignment? IBF, oh shit. When is the deadline? I haven't even read the case. GC, tomorrow's the deadline. Class hours. Don't forget me. My BF, got you. I never intended to pry. I respect privacy. However, this conversation was really giving me chills. I back read their conversation and ding ding ding, I saw that my BF has been giving the paraphrased version of all the papers that I made for him to this girl. And yes, she's his side chick. My day went on the usual, and when I got back to his apartment, I wanted to talk to him about what I saw, but he told me he has to go out to meet his groupmates in another subject. As he was heading out, he told me I needed to write another case study and the deadline was the next day. He gave me a 3-page readings for it and reminded me about the paraphrase version. I told him that before I do this paper I need to ask him about something. He dismissed me angrily and said that he'll be late for the meeting. Giving up on discussing the issue with him, I just said I need to know the details for this case study. He shouted at me and said it's the same as the last time. Q in malicious compliance. While he was out, I started working on the papers and planned my revenge. I threw the reading material into his trash can and looked for the paper that I wrote for him last week for a different topic. After all, he said it was just the same as last time. I didn't edit anything except the file name. I know he'll be giving the paraphrased version to his side chick, so I used the original one and renamed it to paraphrase version. Docs, and renamed the paraphrased version to original. Docs. I sent it to his email and told him I have an emergency in my apartment and that I will be going home that night. I lied. I packed my bag and went to a hotel for the night. The next day, I went to my workshop, turned off my phone and went on with my day. As I was driving back to my city, I opened my phone and saw that he left me a ton of messages and missed calls. I know my plans work. I called him and asked what was the matter. Me, hey, what's up? BF. The paper. It was from last week's topic. Me. Are you sure you checked the correct email that I sent you? BF. I was accused of cheating. I'll be suspended and worse dismissed because of this. Me. Cheating? The papers are not plagiarized. I even used Turnitin. Why did your professor said you were cheating? BF. Silence. Me. Is it because you and name of girl classmate has been submitting similar works? BF. Hang up. According to a mutual friend of ours, the side chick is in the same subject but different section. The professor checked their previous submissions and saw the similarities. My BF and his side chick failed that class and was suspended for 1 semester due to cheating. TL. Doctor, BF made me do his and his side chick's paper assignment. I switched their papers and they got caught. They failed the class and got suspended for 1 semester. Edit 1. Whoa. Thank you for the silver kind stranger. I'll do my best to answer your questions, but for the general one, yes, I know that writing papers for him was wrong, especially 1. I was a teacher's assistant during that time, and 2. I was already taking up my master's degree. But hey, I was in love and was willing to compromise my values for my BF. Here is a research paper about some effects of love in a person's rationality. http://socialsciences. Celo.org/Celo. PHP. Script equals CR text and PID equals S0100512. X 2,008,100,003. Edit 2. Yes, we broke up, but it was not because of this incident. We got back after a few weeks, and then after a few months, he dumped me XD. The root was actually because he accused me of hacking his account. After all, I am a CS major. I know. I was stupid. Hahaha.